දැන් මාස 25ක ස්ථාවර තැන්පතු සඳහා 10.75ක අසම සම පොලියක් LB යසෙසුරු.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Sunday, the 8th of February 2026. Widening nets, protesting fishermen to intensify strike tomorrow. Entire families expected to go on hunger strikes. Winch net fishermen across Sri Lanka to suspend fishing in protest of the winch fishing ban. The markup. Department of Posts revises domestic postal rates effective tomorrow. Zero tolerance. Bus owners may lose route permits if drivers found to be intoxicated, warns the minister. Disappointed. Education sector hit by aimless policies, says the opposition leader. Opposition meanwhile criticizes the government over unmet election promises.
Kalin baby so rupial anuwakata. Kalin baby podi hamotamai.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on the Derana News channel. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms. Recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, your top story tonight, fishermen protesting outside the presidential secretariat warn that they will intensify their hunger strike from tomorrow, including their family members, if the government fails to take action to lift the ban on seine net fishing using tractor-mounted winches. They further announced that winch net fishermen across the island will suspend all fishing activities starting tomorrow in a show of collective protest against the ban. The demonstration entered its fourth day today with the former State Minister of Fisheries and Member of Parliament Dilip Vedarachi joining the protest in solidarity with the fishermen.
Seine net fishing has been a traditional livelihood of coastal fishing communities in the country since ancient times. In recent years, however, fishermen have increasingly relied on tractor-mounted winches for seine net fishing due to the growing shortage of manual labor. The government has imposed a ban on the use of seine nets in the winch netting industry, citing concerns that the use of longer nets and heavier weights than permitted could damage coral reefs and fish breeding grounds. Authorities say the move is aimed at protecting marine ecosystems and safeguarding traditional fishing practices. Opposing this decision and demanding the immediate removal of the ban, a group of winch net fishermen launched a hunger strike and satyagraha campaign in front of the presidential secretariat on the 5th. The protesters have continued their demonstration day and night at the same location. Fishermen protesting outside the presidential secretariat warned that they will escalate their ongoing hunger strike from tomorrow by including their family members if the government fails to take steps to lift the ban on seine net fishing using tractor-mounted winches. As the protest entered its fourth consecutive day today, former State Minister of Fisheries and Samagi Janabalawegaya parliamentarian Dilip Vedarachi met the protesting fishermen today.
අධ්‍යක්ෂ ජෙනරාල්ටම අපේ පරිගන්න තුමා කාලේ දෙනවා පොලිස්පතිතුමා නායක හමුදාපතිතුමාට අත්අඩංගුව ගැනීම දැඩි කරන්න කියලා. එතුමාට තියෙන දීවලොත් එක පුද්ගලික තරහක් සෙමන්ට් කම්පැනිත් එක්ක යාළුකමක් මිත්‍රකමක්. අපි කියනවා මේ තියෙන අපි අදින විදිය, මාදල අපි අදින විදිය, මේ තියෙන යුරෝපේ අදින විදිය. ඔයාලා දන්න තව මේකේ හොඳ තාක්ෂණයක් තියෙනවා කියන්න. ඔයාලා කියනවනේ වැලි බුරුල් වෙනවා කියලා පස් බුරුල් වෙනවා කියලා. එහෙම පස් බුරුල් වෙන්නේ කොහෙන්ද? මම මාදල්කාරයෙක්.
I am a fifth generation fisherman. I shared my thoughts on the matter in the presence of the Fisheries Minister, State Minister and the Director General. The Deputy Minister was heard to say that fishing destroys coral reefs, seaweeds and sweet-dwelling organisms. All zones where seine net fishing is permitted have been gazetted after conducting environmental assessments through expert committees. Seine net fishing was approved only in shows with fine sands. There are no corals in such shows. Neither the Deputy Minister nor the Director General were able to put an end to trawler fishing in the north. However, they have now decided to stop seine net fishing. I urge them to study this industry further.
MP Dilip Vedarache thereafter joined the protesters in a show of solidarity. Meanwhile, Samik Janabalawege MP Hector Appuhami arrived at the protest site this afternoon in support of the demonstrators. Subsequently, MPs Hector Appuhami and Dilip Vedarache visited the presidential secretariat seeking discussions with the government officials. However, their attempt was unsuccessful as no officials were available at the time.
We will continuously strive to resolve this matter. We anticipate a fair resolution after discussions with the President.
Central Finance
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa criticized the government for causing disruption and damage to the education sector by ineffective and aimless policies. Speaking during a discussion today, he urged the Prime Minister to grant qualified principals their rightful appointments without delay.
A group of individuals who were not recruited to service despite having passed the principal's Grade 3 examination met with opposition leader Sajith Premadasa today to air their grievances.
The current government is violating its pre-election pledges and pursuing a policy that deeply disappoints the human capital of the education sector. There are 1,216 principals who have successfully passed the relevant examination and are awaiting permanent appointments to the Grade 3 principal service. Despite this, the government has conducted a new examination to fill these existing vacancies. As a result of the government's ineffective and purposeless program, the education sector has severely deteriorated. Education reforms were disrupted after inappropriate content was included, and since then, contradictory statements have been made by both the President and the Prime Minister. Significant damage has also been caused to the education sector. We strongly urge the government to cease these harmful actions and to fulfill its responsibility by granting permanent appointments to principals eligible for the Grade 3 service. We call upon the Prime Minister to take immediate action to resolve this matter.
ඉක්මනින්ම ලබා දීම රජයේ යුතුයකම වී තිබෙනවා. ඒ වහා ඉටු කරන්නටයි අපි අග්‍රාමාත්‍යවරයාට ප්‍රකාශ කර සිටිනවා.
Sarvajana Balaya leader and parliamentarian Dilith Jayavira accuses the government of disregarding the promises and pledges they made to almost every sector and industry of the country. While addressing a gathering in Kegal today, the parliamentarian also claimed that the government is being operated by external forces whom they continuously attempt to satisfy.
The Sarvajana Sabha of the Yatyanthara electorate in the Kegal district was inaugurated today under the patronage of Sarvajana Balaya leader parliamentarian Dilith Jayavira.
One of the ministers of the incumbent government says they will attack anyone regardless of their status, even if they are wearing a saffron robe. We have never heard such statements in Sri Lanka before. The government pledged to integrate school development officers into the teaching profession, but they have now completely disregarded those promises. They have threatened unemployed graduates, telling them not to request employment from the government again. Members of the government once acted as though they were the same as farmers, but look at how farmers are being treated now. They degraded war heroes by referring to them as mere soldiers, and during the Independence Day parade, they further insulted them by trivializing the contributions strictly to the Cyclone Ditwa rescue operations. The government views doctors as their enemies. Another ministry is attempting to commit fraud at the Dambulla dedicated economic centre in the near future. Fishermen who have engaged in fishing for generations using their own equipment are now being told to hold their livelihoods without any alternative solution. No government can act so arrogantly by ordering people to stop their livelihoods without offering alternatives. What government in history has chased away street vendors without even providing them a roof over their heads? The government is not sensitive to the grievances of the people because it is the puppet regime operated by external forces. They do not care about national harmony. They no longer value close ties with the public, which is why they make statements that hurt the majority of the people and the Buddhist order. They are dependent on external forces and are implementing measures to satisfy those parties. We have never seen such rulers in Sri Lanka before.
Now, Deputy Chief Prelate of the Sri Kalyani Samagri Dharma Mahasangha Sabha of Kotte, Venerable Professor Kottapitiya Rahula Thera states that during the recent incident where a Buddha statue was removed from a temple in Trincomalee, the arrested monks were forced to admit to committing wrongful actions they did not commit. This was revealed while addressing the gathering at the launching ceremony of the new freedom movement, Janmabhoomi.
The launch ceremony of the new freedom movement, Janmabhoomi, was held this afternoon at the Bandaranaike Memorial International Conference Hall in Colombo. It was attended by the Buddhist monks, political representatives, scholars, social activists and others.
මේ රටේ සිදුවෙන සිදුවීම් තුලින් අපි කාටත්
යමක් වැටහෙනවා.
Given the current situation, it is clear that the country is not heading down a good path. Recently, the president visited the north and made a statement suggesting that Buddhists visit the north to spread hatred. Is that really the case? We do not promote hatred through religion. The north has a long-standing Buddhist heritage. I recently visited Trincomalee with a group of monks due to a significant incident that occurred there. I visited the jail to meet a monk who shed light on the pending litigation. He explained that they were being asked to admit to mistakes they did not commit. This is why the case has not been resolved. 10 monks share the exact same experience. As I mentioned earlier, the government's media portrays one narrative while the reality is quite different. We must all be concerned over the suffering of these monks faced for possessing a Buddhist statue. What is wrong with having a Buddha statue anywhere in this country?
මේ රටේ කොයි කොරයෝලේ බිදු පිළිමයක් තියුණත් ඇති වරද මොකක්ද? ඇයි මේ?
And now here's a look at more local news, rather more developments unfolding in the political arena.
We put an end to politics that directly benefited politicians. Our government ensured that politicians work for the common man. This kind of politics is unfamiliar to those of previous regimes, which is why they feel hurt and are creating such commotion. For the convenience of the current government, 1,750 cabs are being imported by paying an installment of 12,500 million rupees using taxpayer proceeds. They were ashamed to display borrowed weapons at the Independence Day ceremony. Yet the same government that claimed it would not take anything that the people themselves do not have is now shamelessly planning to import 1,750 vehicles by spending 12,500 million rupees. We took over bankrupt country with an empty treasure. In just 1 year, we saved 1,100 billion rupees. This opposition will not return to power in the next century. The opposition is trying to create the impression that the current government is failing. They keep telling us to fulfill the promises we made. We are in fact in the process of fulfilling those promises. We asked the NPP and the JVP leaders how they intend to keep the promises they made. What happened to claims on the billions allegedly stolen by the Rajapakshas? When will that money be recovered? Instead, to cover up their own incompetence, they drag Namal Rajapaksa and Shiranthi to the CID over trivial matters.
Now today marks the 4th day of the Devni Mori Relic special exposition at the Hunupitiya Gangarame temple, with devotees from across Sri Lanka, including disabled veterans, arriving to witness and venerate the sacred relics of the Lord Buddha. The sacred relics will be open for veneration continuously until 7 a.m. on February 11th.
The sacred relics of Lord Buddha, unearthed at the historic Devni Mori site in Gujarat, arrived in Sri Lanka for a special exposition at the Gangarame temple in Hunupitiya. This marks the first occasion that the Devni Mori relics have travelled outside India. Several government ministers, political representatives, defence chiefs and former cricketers also visited the temple to venerate the sacred relics. Today marks the 4th day of public veneration, with devotees from across Sri Lanka arriving at the temple to pay their respects to the sacred Devni Mori relics. Several disabled veterans also visited the temple to venerate the sacred relics. Chief Prelate of the Askiri chapter of the Siam Nikaya, Most Venerable Warakagoda Sri Gnanaratana Thero, also visited the Gangarame temple this afternoon to venerate the sacred Devni Mori relics of Lord Buddha. The opportunity for devotees to venerate the sacred relics will continue uninterrupted for 24 hours until 7 a.m. on February 11th.
Now, Minister of Transport, Highways and Urban Development Bimal Ratnayaka says that bus owners will lose their route permits if drivers are found to be under the influence of narcotics. The minister made these remarks at a special meeting held at the Mathura District Secretariat today.
A special meeting was held today at the Mathura District Secretariat under the patronage of the Minister in charge of Transport, Highways and Urban Development, Bimal Ratnayaka. Proposals to improve the transport, highways and urban development sector in the Mathura district were the focus of this meeting. Bus owners shoulder the burden of preventing drivers from consuming narcotics. Bus owners are expected to know if their drivers and conductors are using narcotics. We warn owners not to allow such practices as it could result in the revocation of their route permits. We cannot excuse bus owners who claim ignorance over the narcotics use of their drivers and conductors. We hate to revoke permits, so we suggest that bus owners prioritize giving employment to those who do not use narcotics. Failure to comply will result in permits cancellation and potential business losses. Testing drivers for narcotics consumption is a legal requirement now.
Welcome back. Now, Roman Gautam, editor of Himal South Asian magazine, says that the media has become a significant liability to regional integration and collaboration among South Asian countries. He made these remarks while participating in a discussion recently organized by the Regional Center for Strategic Studies.
I think you cannot quite fault journalists across the grand span of, let's say, the South Asian adventure for, at least on the metric of intent, a realistic assessment of where that has landed us would say that at the end of the day, despite journalists' best efforts, how much have they been able to foster a regional spirit? I think that there have been severe limitations to that. And my understanding is that the media now, more than ever before, has become more of a hurdle rather than an ally to regional integration. When it comes to regional integration, India remains both the center of gravity and oftentimes the biggest obstacle, in the sense that regionalism, as it has taken shape, has always been defined by the limits of India's cooperation across various borders. My understanding of what is happening in India and with its coverage of the region is that you have a media that has completely subjugated itself to the interests of the ruling power, but also importantly subjugated itself to the domestic interests of the ruling power. The kind of coverage that these organizations are doing is not helping Indian interests when it comes to regional standing or when it comes to geopolitical and international standing. What is it doing? It is feeding the biases and the desires of the domestic base. And so I think that we have come to the point where the media that way has become a massive liability for South Asia, taking for granted that India is the capstone or the hub through which all of the regionalism will have to flow if there is to be a really healthy and fruitful regional network and building up of South Asia. Countries that believe in themselves as the hegemon, and that framing and that tendency bleeding into the mindset that the journalists carry with them when they come out of those countries as well, I think is another big problem. Of course, when you have parachute journalism, there will be big gaps in their understanding and knowledge. I think that there is a very real gap simply of information, perhaps also of curiosity, where South Asian journalists do not know themselves, or the neighborhood rather, as well as oftentimes Western journalists coming in to cover the region. The media should act to the diplomatic community not as a subordinate, but an independent ally, I would say, in actually producing good information on what the hell is actually happening. Instead, you have this cannibalization, regional interests in the interests of domestic politics and electoral gain, which I think has become a huge liability for South Asian integration.
Now, the Department of Posts has decided to revise domestic postal rates with effect from tomorrow. Accordingly, the postal rate for a regular letter has been increased from 50 rupees to 70 rupees, along with increases in several other service charges.
According to the revised postal rates effective from tomorrow, the fee for a regular letter has been increased from 50 rupees to 70 rupees, while the registered postal rate will remain unchanged at 60 rupees. The basic weight category for general and business letter services has been revised from 20 grams to 30 grams. In addition, the maximum weight for a leaflet or a set of leaflets has been increased from 100 grams to 120 grams, the Department of Posts stated. The fee previously charged at 30 rupees for letters mailed by charities, social service institutions and voluntary organizations has been increased to 50 rupees with effect from tomorrow. The charge under the special service provided to ministries and state departments for the registration of postal items has been increased from 110 rupees to 130 rupees, while the fee for a postcard has been increased from 20 rupees to 40 rupees. However, the Department of Post confirmed that the charges for the general parcel service and the Sri Lanka Post courier service will remain unchanged. In addition, fees for postcard services, advertising mail, telemail services, stamp covers, postal bag services and the minimum surcharge for unpaid and underpaid postal items have also been revised.
The Derana Close-Up Colombo Music Festival, organized to mark the 20th anniversary of TV Derana, was held yesterday in Colombo. The festival began with free masterclasses at Vihara Mahadevi Park held from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. The sessions provided fans with an opportunity to meet experts from various fields of modern music and to gain from their insights and their knowledge and experience. Later in the evening, a free concert was held at the Colombo Lotus Tower from 7 p.m. onwards. The event was headlined by the band Midlane and featured performances by several of Sri Lanka's leading artists. With that, here's a look at more local news across the island in brief.
The Department of Motor Traffic announced that plans are underway to commence printing permanent vehicle number plates within the next 3 months. Off the back of a tender process, the issuance of permanent number plates has been assigned to a particular institution which is currently making preliminary arrangements to resume operations. The department stated that the printing of vehicle number plates will be carried out in coordination with its main office in Verahara. Accordingly, number plates are due to be issued for approximately 400,000 vehicles. In the meantime, officers from the Valana Anti-Corruption Strike Force unit raided an abortion centre in Beruala today. The raid was conducted following a tip-off received by the officer in charge of the Kaluthara Police Division and based on a search warrant obtained from the Kaluthara Magistrates Court. The abortion centre, operating as a medical clinic, was located behind the Beruala police station. During the raid, the donor in charge was arrested while the police seized a stock of various drugs and surgical equipment used to perform abortions. Police revealed that the arrestee previously worked as a medical health officer and charged upwards of 45,000 rupees per person to perform an abortion. The suspects and the equipment seized by the police are scheduled to be produced in court. In other local news, a failed shooting attempt occurred last night at around 10:30 p.m. at a restaurant in Nagoda, Kaluthara. The attempt failed when the firearm malfunctioned as the assailant tried to fire it. According to the reports, the restaurant owner, who was the target of the shooting, had contested the last local government election within the Kaluthara Municipal Council jurisdiction as a candidate of the Samak Janabalawegaya party but was defeated at the polls. The targeted restaurant owner is also reported to be an accused in a murder case currently pending in court.
Welcome back. Now in your world news, Indian refiners are avoiding Russian oil purchases for delivery in April and are expected to stay away from such trades for longer, refining and trade sources said, a move that could help New Delhi seal a trade pact with Washington. The US and India moved closer to a trade pact yesterday, announcing a framework for a deal they hope to conclude by March that would lower tariffs and deepen economic cooperation. Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum and Reliance Industries are reportedly not accepting offers from traders for Russian oil loading in March and April. These refiners, however, had already scheduled some deliveries of Russian oil in March, according to international Indian reports. Although the trade framework did not mention Russian oil, President Donald Trump rescinded his 25% tariff on Indian goods imposed over Russian oil purchases because New Delhi had committed to stop directly or indirectly importing Russian oil. New Delhi has not announced plans to halt Russian oil imports. Now, halfway across the world, a white supremacist who killed 51 Muslims and injured dozens at 2 mosques in New Zealand will begin an appeal hearing against his sentence tomorrow. Brenton Tarrant opened fire on 2 mosques in Christchurch in March 2019 in the worst mass shooting in the country's history. He was convicted of 51 charges of murder, 40 counts of attempted murder and 1 charge of committing a terrorist act, and is serving a life sentence in prison without parole. It was the first time a New Zealand court had sentenced a person to prison for the rest of their life. Tarrant, an Australian national, released a racist manifesto shortly before storming the mosques armed with military-style semi-automatics, indiscriminately shooting at Muslims gathered for Friday prayers and live-streaming the killings on Facebook using a head-mounted camera. New Zealand's worst peacetime killing shocked the country and prompted the government to quickly tighten gun laws. Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi says 4 people have been arrested over a suicide bombing that killed more than 30 worshippers at a Shia mosque in Islamabad. Mohsin Naqvi said the suspects include an Afghan national alleged to be the mastermind behind the attack. 1 counter-terrorism officer was killed and 3 others wounded during raids to detain them. The Islamic State group has claimed responsibility for Friday's blast in the Tarali area, which injured more than 160 people and marked the deadliest attack in the capital in over a decade. Thousands attended funerals under tight security yesterday. Pakistan's leadership strongly condemned the attack, while officials traded accusations involving India and Afghanistan, claims both countries have denied. Authorities have pledged major security upgrades across Islamabad. Now in your sports news, Sri Lanka is currently playing their opening T20 match of the preliminary round of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup, jointly hosted by Sri Lanka and India. The Irish captain Paul Sterling won the toss and elected to bowl against Sri Lanka in the Group B match at the R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo. Sri Lanka went into the match with a balanced combination of 5 batters and 5 bowlers. At the end of their 20 overs, Sri Lanka posted a total of 163 runs for the loss of 6 wickets. Kusal Mendis and Kamindu Mendis top scored for Sri Lanka with 56 and 44 runs respectively, while Barry McCarthy and George Dockrell claimed 2 wickets apiece for Ireland. In reply, Ireland, chasing a target of 164 runs, had scored 37 runs for the loss of 1 wicket at the end of 5 overs. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.